there's a lot of, can you even believe we're doing this? And a lot of, oh yeah, we're doing this in this movie. And it's a lot of fun to watch.
Look up in the sky. It's a bird, it's a plane. It's our Superman review. We're going to be non-spoilery here.
Yes.
We are so excited to talk about this. We are getting this review out to you as fast as we possibly can, the very second that the embargo lifted. But because of that, we don't want to spoil anything for you at all. So we're going to be super careful in discussing Superman. And then at some point, we'd like to do a spoiler discussion, a live spoiler discussion, because we know that you're going to want to talk about it too. But come hang out and subscribe so you don't miss out on anything good that's going on here all summer long. Alonso, what happens in Superman?
I would question myself in the same situation and consider the consequences.
People were going to die.
Well, again, if you have a hair trigger about what constitutes a spoiler, maybe stop watching now. But really, we're going to just keep it to the broadest outlines here. So, yeah, this is a reboot of one of the most iconic characters in Western literature. And James Gunn, who writes and directs, figures we don't need to see Krypton explode. We don't need to, go through the whole thing. We come in media res. A few title cards tell us who this guy is, where he came from, how long he's been on Earth. How long he's been Superman, all of that good stuff. And he is immediately drawn into a conflict on the other side of the world. Two countries, one wants to invade the other one. Superman has stepped in to prevent that invasion from happening, and the would-be invaders have sent this robot to Metropolis to kill him. It has managed to bat him all the way to the North Pole, which takes you to what the teaser showed us involving who rescues him and where he takes him. But there's a larger story going on here, of course, and it all has to do with the machinations of billionaire Lex Luthor, who, let's face it, in literature was a megalomaniacal, terrible, despicable billionaire before we had them in real life. A prophetic character. We're lousy with Lex Luthors now. This movie gives us one, and it's played by Nicholas Hoult, who gets it. He is giving us a Luthor who is not like Gene Hackman wacky, or even like Jesse Eisenberg. Thank you. Anyway, Nicholas Hoult is a dynamite Lex Luthor. Somehow this is a world where, despite the wild advances in technology, we still have newspapers, and the Daily Planet is still a bustling concern where Clark Kent and Lois Lane work and exchange banter. And much as the comics have given us for the last few decades, this is a Lois who knows Clark's double identity, which also leads to its own level of complications. Big things happen and stuff gets destroyed, and, it all comes down to the seconds of timing and getting it just right. This is a tremendous amount of fun. David Corenswet is a terrific Superman and a terrific Clark Kent. He is charismatic. He is charming. He provides the sense of guilelessness that I think Superman can have and maybe should have. This is a 180 from what Zack Snyder was giving us with his sort of darker take on the character. I don't know if this is a character that loans itself to a darker take. I think he needs to be a little bit golly gee whiz. And, James Gunn is, I think, the master of splitting the difference between the wink and sincerity. There's a lot of, can you even believe we're doing this? And a lot of, oh yeah, we're doing this in this movie. And it's a lot of fun to watch. Corenswet and Rachel Brosnahan have really wonderful romantic chemistry as Clark and Lois, which I think is always important. A lot of fun side DC universe characters. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but you probably know from like the posters and stuff that we get Mr. Terrific and Guy Gardner Green Lantern, played by Nathan Fillion, and Hawkgirl, and there are some shout outs to the Richard Donner Superman. Obviously, we saw this in IMAX, and I think it really benefits from that. This is a big, swooping, whooshing movie that also has time for humanity, has time for stakes, has time for fun and jokes, but not in a way I think that undermines the thing. Do we all have superhero fatigue at this point? Yes. Did I find myself kind of giddily swept away by this movie? Yes.
Yeah, I was blown away by it too. And I wasn't going into this like woohoo Superman, although I like James Gunn, I like David Corenswet, I like everybody involved here. But this far exceeded all of my expectations in terms of the tone, in terms of the pacing, the look of it, the use of music, both, you know, pieces of the iconic score, but also the cool soundtrack that you always get from a James Gunn movie. And just the balance between the thrills, the summertime thrills, and the real legitimate stakes. And I felt more than ever the importance of Superman as an immigrant here and as a refugee. And maybe it's me, or maybe it's the times in which we're living, but they really bring that home in a way that is poignant and is not heavy-handed, but is germane to the story and to the time in which the story is being told. As you said, this is like, you know, one of our classic pieces of Western literature here, but I feel like James Gunn managed to find a new way into that makes it relevant in a way that's powerful and meaningful without like beating you over the head.
Absolutely.
It's not like didactic.
Yeah.
And I was really impressed by that. Of course, that's been, you know, crucial to who Superman is since his inception. The people who created Superman were, you know, second generation immigrants themselves, and they wanted to tell that kind of story. And so that's important here. But
they were Jewish guys who drew him punching Nazis before we'd even entered World War II.
Yeah, very cool. And so, but David Corenswet like finds that balance, as you say, with the golly gee of, you know, the Clark Kent version of him. He's so sweet and so kind-hearted, and that kind-heartedness feels like it just sort of like permeates everything. As you're leaving the theater, that's like the vibe you're going to get. But also there's a bit more swagger to him here than you usually see in Superman. There's a great exchange, a very like kind of sexy, flirty, but also increasingly tense exchange between him and Lois.
Yeah.
Where he stands up for himself and his decisions, and he's like borderline cocky. You know, there's more shading to him because he could be inherently just a boring Boy Scout.
Well, that's the
there's
thing.
A lot more to this portrayal than that.
For sure. And I think the movie acknowledges the complications of having a fairly like, you know, binary, you know, good, bad, black, white view of the world that Superman can have, and sort of the complications like, well, yeah, but there's also borders, and there's also like, you know, governments that have to be, you know, like things are more complicated than he sees them as somebody who is not of this earth, and sort of has to kind of figure out how to balance his worldview with the practicalities of how governments and other, you know, institutions interact here. You know, I also like the fact that yeah, Lois is kind of there to call him on stuff, and so they do kind of, you know, play off of that. Skyler Gisondo, by the way, is a great Jimmy Olsen.
Great casting.
I think this is a character they found fun things to do with. But yeah, just this movie it's got ideas to it. It is also thrilling, and it is also funny. Like, it is pretty much like bringing you the stuff that you want from this kind of movie. Does the third act go on a bit long? Sure, they always do. But, you know, I at least knew what the stakes were and where people were in relation to each other, and what was the chain of events that got us there, and what needed to happen to get us, you know, out of it.
Yeah, there's some very complicated set pieces where it would be easy to get lost in the swirl of it all. Yeah. And you never do. Like the visual effects are really impressive. We can talk about Crypto. Crypto is amazing. And Crypto is so freaking lifelike. Like those visual effects in particular are really, really impressive. They don't go heavily on like, oh, what a cute doggy, because Crypto's a total pain in the ass, but like hilariously so, and so reliable. You know, it's easy in a movie with a dog to like cut to the dog whenever you want to laugh or a heartwarming moment. Like, there's more to Crypto than that as well. Yeah, David Corenswet and Rachel Brosnahan have incredible chemistry with each other. He's just a perfect Superman, you know, and it is literally an iconic role, and he brings the vibe you need, like the looks and the strength, but also some more interesting, unexpected stuff there as well. I want to mention Eddie Gathegi is Mr. Terrific. I'd never seen him before. He was great. I liked Sarah Sampaio as Eve. is what I will call her here. You know who she is, you know. But yeah, I really, really love this too. I love the way it's shot. I love the production design. There are some individual moments, like establishing shots, that took my breath away, of like a building or a cityscape or whatever it is. Henry Brom is the DP who also shot some Guardians stuff, shot The Suicide Squad. And there's almost like a creamy kind of retro look to this sometimes. It feels like it's 40s, 50s.
Yeah, I think they're specifically, they're not, it's not a direct adaptation, but I think one of the main jumping off points is a series called All-Star Superman that has a kind of retro feel to it. And they're going for that here with the color choices and with different things, but never, it's not like Dick Tracy. They aren't really going, super hard on it. I also enjoyed Pruitt Taylor Vince and Neva Howell as the Kents. Yeah. I think they felt more legitimately like Kansas farm folk than other versions of those characters.
Diane Lane.
Over the years. Yeah, exactly. Diane Lane and Kevin Costner were like posing for the, the Kansas issue of the Yellow Bean catalog,
Too glamorous.
So, yeah. This was, again, I kind of went in not really knowing how this was going to go. And I felt genuine delight, which is not a thing that I've felt a lot in superhero movies of late.
Yeah, I was delighted and also moved. Yeah. And I brought Nick with me. He's 15 and he loved it too. So if you're thinking about bringing kids, bringing teenagers, you absolutely can. Yeah. Like, I don't think that any of the superhero destruction here is so disturbing or scary that you couldn't bring kids to this. You absolutely could. This is going to work for various people on a multitude of levels. But yeah, if you can see it in IMAX, absolutely do, just for the enormity of it all, for the sound design, for the music. It's just, it's summer.
Yeah, and look, if you want to kill an afternoon, in IMAX and air conditioning and popcorn, like this one also gives you a movie to go with that, which is nice. Yes. And if you've already decided you hate it, you probably will, but that's on you.
Yeah, I'm gonna say a 9.2.
I'm at a 9. Yeah, I think this is. Look, I'm not going to say, this is the movie that saves the superhero genre, because frankly, I think we could all see it take a couple of years off and be okay with that. But it does give the genre a good name, and it does give it a little boost at a moment where it all seemed to be flagging. So, this is a real treat.
Yes. So go check it out this weekend, and we'll have details soon on a live spoiler talk. Hope to see you there.